Welcome to the Stygion and Stanley podcast. I'm Danny Stygion.
I'm your stepdad.
And then this is episode number 6. And today we're going to talk about movies that deal with ghosts. We're going to talk about Poltergeist first and then Dead Silence by James Wan. And so Poltergeist, I remember seeing in the theater when I was a kid, when I lived in Japan.
Oh, damn.
I think I know for sure my mother was with me. I don't know about my dad, but I remember it freaked me out, especially the mirror scene, which we'll get to. One thing I wanted to, this is definitely one of my favorite horror movies from the 80s. And I'm a big Tobe Hooper fan, but this movie feels very like Steven Spielberg-ish. And I know he had a lot of behind the scenes notes. I guess some people say he ghost directed it.
I could absolutely see that. No, I could absolutely see that. Like I know like it might not be a popular opinion with some people that are horror movie snobs. But I feel like Poltergeist is like, it's not the best horror movie ever, but it's a perfect horror movie. That makes any sense. Like it has no weak areas in it. There's no like watching it and going like, obviously it's old.
Yeah.
But when I was rewatching it, I was just thinking, man, there's no weak characters. There's no weak like plot points. There's no like, oh, this ending sucks. Like where it looked like they were rushed. It's a perfect horror movie. But I didn't know that about the Steven Spielberg thing, but yeah, I can absolutely see that that's probably correct.
Maybe it was more like, when he's on the set and because of who he is, maybe Hooper just kind of went along with it, or I don't know. Like, I'd have to see if there's interviews with him, defending himself, like, no, I directed this movie, or.
I mean, I guess it could just be he was influenced by, right? Because during that time period, that was like anything that came out that was worth watching, pretty much, was either Ivan Reitman or Steven Spielberg at that time, in that decade. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe he just like saw the formula or figured out the formula and was like, hey, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fucking follow this formula.
Yeah, it's possible.
And kind of like, obviously he nailed it. So
the special effects, I think, are still pretty good. Like, of course, they're a little dated here and there, but like back then, like it was really good. And just even simple things, like some of my favorite shots is that one shot where the mother, she's in the kitchen with the little girl Carol Ann, and like I think she goes to get like cleaning supplies out of the cabinet. When she turns around, all the chairs are up. It was done in one take, and like, man, that is like really effective.
Yeah, they did a good job with that. I imagine the chairs were like attached, and they just had two guys like run in and like set it down, and then.
Yeah, I was thinking like, how'd they do? Like, I have a whole team just quickly put up the chairs.
Yeah, I bet they had like a second set of chairs that were.
Oh, like already attached. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like glued or screwed together just for that scene, and then they could easily like change it out for the next scene where they just take the chairs off, and then it doesn't look like they were attached. But yeah, that was that's I guess a thing that they started using in a lot of horror movies. Like over the years, they do that cutaway and then cut back, and something's different.
It definitely makes the viewer uncomfortable, and like even the simple shots, like the chair sliding across the floor and then Carol Ann sliding, like it's so simple, but it's really effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the time, outside of like The Exorcist, there wasn't anything like that was a horror movie that wasn't cheesy.
Yeah.
Everything that was horror was kind of like, B movie. I could be wrong, but from that time period, most horror movies that came out were either too fucking scary for kids completely, or they were cheesy. And obviously movies like The Exorcist, The Thing, you're not taking kids to see that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Poltergeist was directed at kids, right? It was like, this is for kids to watch.
It's like the whole family should come out, to see this movie over the weekend. Like, I think they pushed that angle.
And then your kids will never sleep again.
When someone says like Poltergeist, like the first images that come to mind is like the flickering, the strobe effects, and the TV, the static of the TV, and like it's one of the few horror films I think is tied to that image like so well.
Yeah, and it doesn't hold up anymore because, like, my kid, he doesn't fucking know what a fucking static on the TV is. Like, he doesn't know, like, signing off. TVs, what do you mean the channel goes off? I'm like, oh yeah, like at midnight or whatever, it'd sign off. It'd play some fucking bullshit national anthem, and then they like, show some images while that's playing, and then static.
Yeah.
I used static on an old TV once to scare an ex-girlfriend. She was afraid of Chucky. And I don't know where I got it from. I don't even know which one it was. But she was taking a nap, and I had a really large TV in our room. And I turned it on static, and I was laying down on the floor by the bed where she couldn't see me. And I just turned the TV up all the way with the remote. And so she woke up with just static on this big TV. And then like I held the Chucky doll up from the edge of the bed and I heard her gasp, and then I just tossed it like a fucking grenade. Dickhead move, but man, it was funny. It was perfect. It was a perfect scare. And the static, but yeah, we don't have.
Can't do that anymore.
Well, I wonder if like you played like a static image on a TV, like kids would probably freak out, right? They'd be like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
the world is ending.
Where's my Netflix?" Yeah. Another thing about this movie is that I don't know if it's like maybe it could be considered one of the few horror movies that's maybe genuinely cursed because of the actresses that died, like Carol Ann. The actress that played Carol Ann, can't think of her name. And then Dominique Dunn, I think, is the girl that is the brunette daughter in the movie. Like they both died super young. I didn't know
she died. I knew the little girl that played Carol Ann had like leukemia or something, right? She was going through chemo during the second movie. That's why her face was all swollen.
I think, I think she died before Poltergeist 3 came out. I don't remember part 2. I remember pieces of part 3. It was like in a high rise or something like that.
I think that was part 2, wasn't? Or is that part 3?
Yeah, part 3 was in the high rise. I definitely remember.
I thought that was part 2. I don't remember part 2 then.
I don't remember 2 or 3 that much because I don't think they were memorable.
Yeah, it didn't have the same impact for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate also like the practical effects that they used in it. Like they used some like for the time, I guess it was called CGI, but the practical effects were always what was scarier. Because it was tangible. It looked more realistic, to see it. The scenes in Ghostbusters that were the most effective were like, oh, Slimer doesn't look like a CGI character, because it was a CGI effect overlaid over like an actual, physical effect. And then, getting slimed and having it, you could see it. It was like you could touch it. And that's what I always appreciate about horror movies that use practical effects instead of too much CGI.
So did that mirror scene with that guy fuck you up like it did me when I was a kid?
Okay. So true story, and I've never told a single person this ever. To this day, I will not eat drumsticks Not with wings or not with chicken. Absolutely will not. And everyone's like, they're just like, oh, I don't like drumsticks. I just tell them that, and they never bring it up. It's just dropped. And people that the argument about when people eat chicken wings, they're like, oh, you only eat flats? Like, that's so fucking weird. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. It's weird. Yeah. The reason I don't eat drumsticks to this day, not turkey, not chicken wings, is because of that scene. That scene just it fucked me up, but like the maggots in the chicken, like really for whatever reason got to me. And in my head, I was thinking like because he ate those maggots and they were in his skin, that's why he started ripping his face off.
Mm.
And I think that was just the progression of him being haunted. But as a small child, seeing that, I thought, oh, those worms got in his face, and that's why he had to rip his face off. So yeah, chicken wings. I have never had a chicken drumstick since I saw that movie when I was 6 or 7.
I think the other famous scene that involves maggots would have to be the Lost Boys scenes with the mice.
Yeah. That one was, I guess maybe I was older. That scene didn't have the same effect on me.
And get you.
No, I mean, but yeah, that scene where he started peeling his face off. I remember walking into the bathroom after seeing that movie, probably for several years. Like, oh, I gotta go pee. So in the night, you walk into and I'd be like, the mirror. I'm like, nope, I'm not looking at that fucking mirror. And I would duck so that in my head, like my reflection wouldn't even be in the mirror. But I absolutely would not look at the mirror. Go to the bathroom, keep my head down, wash my hands while ducking so that, I was like ducking and reaching up so I could wash my hands because I didn't want to have anything to do with that mirror at night.
I really love the mood of that, like that part of the movie too, where like everyone's, half of them are asleep, some of them are still awake, and they're all being quiet, just waiting for something to happen. Like, movie has really good atmosphere.
Yeah, and there's just like weird shit happening. The camera work in some of the scenes, like where the whole camera would like shift with the person.
Yeah.
I didn't ever think about it till I rewatched it recently. And some of those scenes, it seems they almost like that technique or that, I don't know what it's called, that style. They use some of those same things in Ghostbusters. Like in the library scene specifically, right?
Oh yeah.
Like the camera would pan really slowly and I guess it gives it like a feeling of dread because that's what it felt like.
Yeah,
like
that's a good point.
Oh shit, something's, And then while you're watching where the camera's going, you'd see something just kind of off happen. But yeah, it was really, the creepiness was really good. And I guess a lack of jump scares. Jump scares became such a big thing. And I feel like jump scares take you out of a movie. I understand the reasoning behind them, like to get someone's heart rate up. But in my personal opinion, whenever I'm watching a movie and there's like a jump scare, it pulls me out of like the immersion of the movie.
It releases tension a little bit, and then I think some movies just maintain that tension. Well, the only jump scare scene I can think of, which they did a real good job of misdirection, is the scene towards the end with the kid and the clown, where he's looking under the bed, and then
yeah. I guess that was a jump scare, but it didn't like. I don't know. It didn't have the same kind of like jump scare effect where it's like they play the music done and like you jump and then it's
so subtle.
It was really creepy and really like, I don't know, organic the way they did that whole scene.
I wonder if James Wan, who we were about to talk about, was inspired by Poltergeist, because there's a scene in The Conjuring, those girls in their bedroom when she's looking around her room at night, and there's just so much misdirection there And now I think about it, like Poltergeist, that scene with the boy and the clown is kind of crafted the same way. So I wonder if he was inspired by it.
It might be, or just kind of a tribute to Ghostbusters.
Yeah. we
Nice.
have we have a special guest. I love the actress who plays the psychic too. I don't know what other movie she's been. I'm sure she's been in something.
You just licked my water bottle.
Oh.
Yeah, that the lady who played the psychic was great. The way she talked and everything, it was very. She's probably the most memorable character.
Yeah, for sure.
If I think of like quotes from that movie outside of like "They're here," is like when she's like, "This house is clear." Like her whole thing was really cool. She seemed almost creepy.
Yeah.
And when I was watching it, I was like, man, I remember, I think the first time I watched Poltergeist by myself, I think I also watched the movie House. And I have like this weird connection, this association with the psychic lady from Poltergeist and the blue like monster lady from House.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why they're just connected in my head.
I don't know about you, but the ideas of being around an actual psychic just always creeps me out. Like I want someone inside my head.
I would love to believe in people like a psychic or ghost.
Yeah.
And I have actively like tried to put myself in situations where something would make me question, and I haven't ever found it. Every psychic I've ever been to is so full of shit. Everyone I've ever talked to that like truly believes like, oh, I'm a psychic, I can do this, I'm a medium. I'm like, man, you guys are so full of shit. And I get what they're doing. I pick up on their bullshit. They're just like fishing. They're looking for information so that they can kind of like play off of that. But I don't know. I've never had an experience with one that was even close to being accurate.
I know there's that famous story of Houdini who like he went around like debunking a bunch of psychics and like paranormal stuff, and then he told his wife that when he died that he would make sure to like send her a signal from the other side. And then I remember, unless I'm wrong, I remember like she said she never got any type of contact or signal, which I always thought that was an interesting story. But there is some movie about Houdini's life where they changed that at the end. They're like, oh, he reached out to her. Like, no, not from what I've read. That's bullshit. Yeah, I guess let's start talking about Dead Silence.
Cool. I don't know what year Dead Silence came out. 2007, somewhere around there.
That's probably right.
Maybe it was newer.
I think Saw came out early 2000s, and then this was his second movie.
Yeah, I didn't see Dead Silence until, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. Just fucking looking for something to watch when I was bored, and it really surprised me that I hadn't heard anyone talk about it. Like ever. Never heard someone suggest, oh, you should watch Dead Silence. And when I rewatched it the other day, I thought, again, man, this movie is way better than I think people realize. It does have some cheesy stuff in it. And I feel like there's a few things that they should have edited or changed a little to like really make it solid. But the movie itself is really cool. It's kind of like it captures the spirit of the 80s and 90s slasher films. Like you have like a well-defined like backstory of this character. There's even like a little story, like the little nursery rhyme, right? And yeah, I thought it was really well done, and I'm surprised that they didn't make a sequel.
Yeah, I know that James Wan said that he had like was an unpleasant experience making the movie. Like he had studio interference,
Yeah.
and so like years later when he got the opportunity to make Insidious, I think that was like his fourth movie. Like they gave him a lot more creative control. But I know he was really excited about Dead Silence because he was really into like marionettes. And he just thought they like they were creepy as hell.
Yeah. I feel like when I was watching it, I kept thinking it made me think of Candyman, only because I think Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh, is a superior film to the first one. And I feel like maybe it was the same kind of thing, right? Like studio interference,
Yeah.
people fucking with decisions. I feel like Candyman 2 was better. And I've even seen packaging for it where it doesn't say Candyman 2. It just says Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. And I wonder, like, if he would ever do another Dead Silence, but, like, not, put it, like, as a part 2 to kind of, like, flesh out that story, right?
Well, he definitely has more power now. I love, like the name of the town, too, Raven's Fair.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great name. That sounds like a movie title right there.
Even the title Dead Silence, it makes me think that he didn't name it that. I feel like that was
It's
maybe
like a
like
studio name. Yeah.
for sure, right? Like they were like, oh no, we're gonna call it this. And it's these like, out of touch, old crusty studio execs. They're like, oh no, we're gonna do this and this. Even there was a couple of lines of dialogue in it that I was annoyed by. When I first saw the movie, one of the things that stuck with me was fucking Donnie Wahlberg's character. And I thought, I was like, what a good character. What a cheesy, like, noir detective cliche, right?
Yeah.
Every single thing about him was just cheesy and cliche. And then I thought that would be so cool to have his character be the recurring character in several different horror films, with none of them having anything to do with the previous one except this kind of like bumbling, tenacious, bumbling, dumbass like detective with his fucking Norelco, right? His 1986 Norelco. Like he's the guy in all of them trying to solve some case and stumbling into like a horror movie. I thought when I first watched it, I was like, that'd be interesting to
I know I think he plays a detective in one of the Saw movies, one of the Saw sequels. It's probably because his association with James Wan, but I feel like maybe that actor's a little underrated because I think he was in The Sixth Sense too, right?
Oh, I don't know.
The guy that like commits suicide in the beginning of the movie.
I don't know. I've never seen The Sixth Sense.
Oh, you haven't?
I've seen parts of it. I've never watched it all the way through.
Do you know the ending?
Yeah. I know the twist ending. Yeah.
Okay. I say, well, maybe you should watch it. But if you know the twist,
no spoilers. But yeah, and I remember watching it and kind of thinking the whole time, like I kept thinking, this guy is dead.
Okay. Yeah.
I just it wasn't like the twist ending wasn't that much of a twist to me. But the movie, just the pacing of that movie kind of bored me when I was originally watching it. Maybe I could sit down and watch it now. I don't know what was going on when I first tried. But yeah, the characters in the movie are pretty good. The CGI stuff they used, like the filters to make it look like it was overcast and dark.
You talking about Dead Silence?
Yeah, those were kind of obnoxious. Like when I rewatched it, I thought, man, it's so obvious that this is like a filter. They didn't,
So so I would put that in my notes. It has like a really blue tint or bleached out look to it.
Yeah.
So you're saying you don't like that?
No, because it feels very artificial. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it makes it feel like the whole movie is like a dream. Did you like the movie Silent Hill, based on the video game? is fantastic. And in that context, that kind of filter works, right?
Yeah.
Like everything is dark, everything is kind of washed out. But the whole point is like, it's not, this isn't real life, or this is not like the regular world. And that's what I kept trying to, I guess, try to get past that. Cause like, oh, this isn't a scary scene. This is just traveling from point A to point B. But the whole place, once they got to like the Raven's Fair, it was just dark and washed out. But they didn't show enough of like Raven's Fair to justify that. Because he kept saying, oh, I talked to all these people. No one knows what you're talking about. No one's ever heard of Mary Shaw. But they never showed him talking to any of the people, and I think they should have. They should have showed like the way people reacted. I think it would have, helped with that atmosphere of the place.
I kind of agree, because like the opening of the movie is so dark, like you said. Like there's not much transition to Raven's Fair. It's just dark still.
Yeah,
like there's no separation there. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, the opening like murder is just, it's, everything is done really well, I think, in the movie. The creepy parts, the scary scenes. There are some lines of dialogue that really just, I started laughing in one of the scenes where they're in the ladies' playhouse or whatever it was, where she had housed all of her ventriloquist dummies, and they all were moving, I guess, and everything, like the corpse of that one kid was moving around or whatever. And the detective, Donnie Wahlberg's character, is, while they're kind of running and trying to escape, he's like, what's going on? What's going on? And I'm like, bitch, you've been here this whole time. Like you just saw the exact same thing that this guy saw. Everything, they were both there together during that whole buildup, but he's still yelling, what's going on? And I felt like that whole dialogue, that whole section, like, man, that sucks.
Did the ending of the movie surprise you? Like the stuff with the act, I guess the stepmother, the actress's name is Amber Valletta.
That part, that's where I felt like it was maybe the weakest point. Like it seems like they had a way to wrap it up, but they did it too quickly. They didn't really explain or go into how and why she was doing this. The dad, almost as soon as I saw his dad introduced, I thought, oh, he's not alive. Like I didn't know what was going on exactly, but I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, he's dead. Look at him.
Yeah.
The way it ended was, the other scene, before I talk about the way it ended, the other scene that I thought didn't make any sense was that the Undertaker or the Mortician, whatever, that he's the one who carved her face up based on her wishes of when she was buried. That just seemed silly to me. Like for that time period, and she's like, oh, I want you to carve my face up so I look like a ventriloquist dummy. That doesn't make any sense. If they found her like that, that would have made more sense somehow, or been less weird. But yeah, the fact that she came to him just dead, and then he cut her face up and shaped it like that because that's what she put in her last will and testament. That seemed ridiculous to me. As far as the way it ended, I honestly, as it was going, the first time I watched it, I remember thinking, oh, they're gonna wrap this up in a nice bow, and this guy from Knights of Badassdom is gonna drive away in his car, and everything's gonna be happy.
Oh, is that where he's from?
Yeah, he was in Knights of Badassdom.
This is a great movie.
He was in the True Blood. No, is it True Blood?
Oh, okay. I knew I saw his face somewhere.
That's
Yeah,
the Louisiana.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. He was in that too. I think. I'm almost
yeah.
positive it was him.
No, I remember him now.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, Knights of Badassdom is what I know him from. That's the way him dying at the end was good. Like I thought, but it felt rushed. It felt like that movie maybe could have gone another 15, 20 minutes and really fleshed everything out. When they showed the photographs of what happened to the people, and it was clearly like CGI done, it was really bad quality. Like they didn't look like actual photographs of someone's face. Like I wish they hadn't done that. And when they did her ghost traveling into each of the dolls, and it was like this weird CGI, that also was just not good. The rest of everything else I thought was really good. I think it's an underrated movie.
Yeah.
And it's creepy. It's not like, unless you're afraid of dolls, it's not gonna like keep you up at night, but it's creepy. I like the way they left it open for a sequel.
I had seen it before, so this time I kind of paid more attention to certain things, like when the blonde woman is behind the dead dad, like how they position them herself. It's like, oh, that's pretty clever. At least they made it like believable for like someone who's coming back for the second viewing, for it to make sense. It's like I thought they did a pretty good job.
Oh yeah, it was subtle enough to, and I didn't pick up on it the first time watched it. I just thought that the dad was dead. Like I didn't know what was going on with him, but I was like, oh, he's not alive. Look at his fucking face.
Yeah.
He looks all fucked up. But yeah, they did a good job with all of it, and even like when he slumped forward and he saw his back was just cored out.
Yeah.
So she literally had her hand up his spine and into his mouth. I thought that was pretty good. Like that shouldn't have been the only place where you saw that. Like when they talked about the other victims, that's where I feel like some of the movie was taken out, because when they fall in the water and you can see all of the people that she's killed, right? The missing people are floating in the water. But they kind of just glossed over that in the actual like beginning of the movie. They talked about it, but not at length. It was just when he had the conversation with that old man, like at his little sitting table.
I'll have to do some research to see like how much studio interference was involved, because I remember reading about it, but I still think it's a pretty decent movie and a stepping stone to like his better ones like Insidious and The Conjuring, which I really like both those movies.
Oh, he did. I don't know. I think I saw Insidious. I saw The Conjuring for sure. I saw a few of the Conjuring movies.
Check out the Insidious. I think you would really like it, especially if you like this one.
Yeah, I might have seen Insidious. Is that the one with the old lady who's kind of following the kid?
I think so. And I mean, there's like demons and stuff, and it's very similar to Poltergeist actually, a little bit. And they go into the further, I guess, the other side.
Right.
Yeah,
I have seen that. And the Insidious movies weren't bad. I never saw the movie Saw. It just
really.
Now, like when it came out, all of the people talking about it constantly just annoyed me. How many people were like, "Oh, this is the greatest movie ever." They did the same thing with Blair Witch, which I did watch that movie eventually, and then the remake also. But Saw just seemed, I don't know.
So have you not seen it?
Saw?
Yeah.
No. Like I never had the desire to see it really, because I got the premise of it. I understood everything that was going on, but I guess it was shocking to people, the stuff that was going on, the things that had to be done. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really shocking, but if you listen to Cannibal Corpse and things like that. Like,
Oh yeah.
the stuff that's going on in this is not, it's not shocking. It wasn't like that gross. It just seemed like what do they call it? Gore porn.
Yes. I guess that's like a quick comment. I was gonna say. So like, I appreciate Saw for what it is because like they had a super low budget. These were filmmakers that were trying to make something happen, and I think they only had like limited sets. And it unfortunately kind of created that genre of torture porn, in which like I hate a lot of those movies, like Hostel, and I just hate seeing victims getting tortured, and then and then they don't get to fight back, and they just get killed. Like that's not my idea of a good time. But Saw, I think, is a little bit better than that. It just unfortunately spawned that whole subgenre. I think it's worth it to you to at least check out the first one. Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you'll like it.
Well, what's funny is I've seen one of the scary movies where they were doing a parody of Saw.
Oh yeah,
I've seen that, but I haven't seen the actual movie. I saw Spaceballs before I saw Star Wars, so maybe I'm doing things backwards. Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to watch it just to check it out. Just the concept of it, and even the character design of that little whatever that guy's called.
Jigsaw.
Yeah, Jigsaw. Like, it just seems I don't. Cliche is an overused word, but it just seems, I don't know, very cliche. But I guess, if you're on a shoestring budget, creating this little puppet that rides around on like an 80s style like tricycle is interesting. But yeah, like the torture stuff, like the very close up, almost unnecessary gore. Just, I don't know, it doesn't seem scary to me at all. And like the concept of a horror movie is, to me, there should be something scary in there, or spooky, or atmospheric. Making someone like cut their body parts apart to like escape. It's like an escape room with torture.
What do you think of the Hostel movies? Have you ever seen them?
I watched part of the first Hostel, and I remember when we were watching it, I just thought, this isn't scary. There's nothing creepy about this. It's just, let's see if we can gross people out. Let's see if we can make people squeamish by showing this up close, like, torture scenes, basically. I almost felt that way about the Evil Dead remake, the first one that they did the remake of.
Yeah.
I just felt like some of the scenes almost seemed unnecessary, but that's kind of what, was going on in all of the Evil Dead movies. They just took the kind of silliness out of it, and then it was, but yeah, Hostel, just the scenes in that I saw, I watched maybe half, maybe 3/4 of that movie. Yeah. And there was no point of watching that movie where I was like, oh man, I got to see how this ends. I just didn't pull me in enough to even for me to remember what was going on. There was some scene, I think, where they were like cutting through someone's Achilles tendon at some point. I'm pretty sure that was where I saw it. And all I thought was, oh, they ripped this off from Pet Sematary.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But they just, instead of it just being a quick like slice, and they did it in Trick or Treat too. Remember, he took his lollipop and he sliced that guy's Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
Although in Trick or Treat, it was for sure like a tribute to Pet Sematary, 100%, because the way he even did it from under the bed, right? But yeah, I never really got into that genre of horror film.
I'm there with you. The only movie that involves torture that I think worked for me was the Spanish version of Martyrs, I think it's called. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I don't know if I have.
Yeah, that movie's pretty intense, and it does involve like some torture, but there's a purpose to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
going back, I guess, to Dead Silence, when they found the missing boy, the little redhead kid who's, heckling her, they could have shown torture in that, and it would have made sense.
Yeah.
They didn't. Again, I feel like the movie was chopped up because they didn't go deep enough into that kid, right? So, like, even when they showed the kid again, it would, if for someone watching it for the first time, it would take them, actually describing what they had to do it in the movie. He had to, like, oh, this is that kid. This is that missing kid who happened to be related to me, like my great 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 uncle, or whatever the case was. Like, I don't know. I feel like they should make a second one for sure.
Elaborate on it.
Yeah, like, it doesn't have to be an actual sequel. It can be kind of like how Candyman 2 was. They could focus more on her and her story, and then, I don't know, end it with that kid missing, her dying, and then in the movie with just showing that kid turned into a ventriloquist dummy. Like, it would be great. They could definitely franchise that series. I'm sure he doesn't have any rights to it, but
I think he like co-wrote it or wrote it, so he might, and he definitely has the power now to do it.
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, can you think of other ghost movies that you enjoy?
The Frighteners, which was the one I was kind of tossing around. I know it's more of like a dark comedy or horror comedy. I think that movie's underrated too. It's,
for sure.
Michael J. Fox is so tied to Back to the Future that I don't know that people paid much attention to anything he did after.
That's Peter Jackson too, before Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah, that movie is really good. I think it's really well done. Jake Busey, not Gary Busey. Jake Busey was pretty good as, like, the manic greaser ghost. And Jeremy, the guy from Full Metal Jacket, like, his character is great. They did a pretty good job with everything in that movie, and kept it really dark, because, like, I kept thinking, like, towards the end of even that movie, like, oh, they're gonna lighten this up at the end, but it just stayed like when the detective got his head blown off, and then it, like, was his ghost head just still making that same face. It was funny, but a little gory at the same time, which is pretty good. There's a lot of, like, ghost movies that I sometimes, it's like I don't think of them as being a ghost movie. The Dead Silence was one of them, when I was trying to think of, like, a ghost movie that maybe people hadn't seen outside of the usual suspects. I was like, oh yeah, that is a ghost. It's about the ghost of this lady.
Yeah. When you first told me that was your pick, I was like, is that a ghost movie? I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is. Mary Shaw. Yeah.
Yeah, it was her ghost, and she's, like, the thing. And I guess technically Nightmare on Elm Street is a ghost movie, right? Freddy Krueger is a ghost. He just haunts dreams.
Yeah, but I guess you can look at it like that. We'll have to dig into that movie one day, because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You got the poster there.
Oh yeah. Paranormal Activity. What do you think of that movie?
So, I pirated Paranormal Activity when it first came out, and after I watched it, and I'd hear people talking about it that saw it in the theaters. I saw it, like, a month before it came out in theaters, like, in fact. And it was really good. Like, I thought, oh man, that's really well done. And then I heard people talking about it when it came out in theaters, and we'd be having discussions, but it was completely different than what I saw, what they were talking about. And then I found out that they did several different endings.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I think maybe even that they leaked an ending for people that were pirating the movie that was different than the rest of it, so they wouldn't spoil it for them. I don't know how accurate that is, but I for sure saw a different version of it the first time I ever watched it. I saw it again a few years later, and I was like, "Wow, this is really a completely different ending." But yeah, Paranormal Activity was good. I think they did a good job. I think the genre got flooded with that type of movie after it came out.
Yeah,
there were so many bad ones that it just like you kind of forgot about it. I think the same thing with like found footage movies for a while, right after Blair Witch came.
I don't think I can't remember. I don't know if Blair Witch had the same impact as Paranormal Activity as far as like launching the genre, because I don't remember a bunch of found footage movies coming out right after Blair Witch, but I remember for sure a bunch coming out after Paranormal Activity. Or am I wrong?
Yeah. No, they did come out after Blair Witch, but they were like not even theater releases, like straight to video. And I think when Paranormal Activity came out, there was already like streaming was already becoming more of a thing. And I don't think streaming was that big when Blair Witch came out. It might not have existed at all.
No, the internet was like barely getting going, I think.
But the way they did the viral marketing of Blair Witch to like make it seem like it was true, the false news reports putting on like it was kind of brilliant, and I think it holds that distinction of not being the first of its genre, because Cannibal Holocaust was a found footage movie.
Yeah.
But the way they marketed it and the way they presented it was really good. And a little different, right? Because that one dealt with like tangible thing, the witch, like the little witch totems and the different talismans they found. And then Insidious was not Insidious. Paranormal Activity was like security cameras. It wasn't, all the shaky handheld stuff, and they made it really creepy without showing anything. Paranormal Activity reminded me a lot of the Amityville Horror.
Which,
when I first watched the Amityville Horror, the first time I ever saw it, it scared the fuck out of me when I was a kid. Because, like, you never saw shit. Nothing it was ever shown. It was just these terrible things. And, like, the whispering. And, of course, I had a cousin who was an asshole who thought it was funny to, like, whisper into the room, like, get out. And I was like, and of course, in your brain, you're like, I know that's you. I know that was you. But like, and you're like, fuck, was it him? What the fuck is this? Paranormal Activity felt like that. They didn't overdo the reveals, right? Like they did a really good job of like
subtle horror. I know friends of mine, or my wife, Brittany and Jack, mentioned like they watched it when they were alone at night, and like it creeped the hell out of them. It's like, yeah, that's the best movie. If you hadn't seen it, just make sure you're alone and it's at night.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really well done, and I honestly think like it's probably more enjoyable than Blair Witch.
Yeah.
I guess especially the way it ends. Blair Witch, the way it ended was, I don't know, like a fart in the wind. Like there was no good payoff. Paranormal Activity, all the versions I've seen where they change the endings, every ending is good. Like you get some kind of like climax, I guess, if you want to call it that.
I have a soft spot for Blair Witch, and I watched it last year again for the first time in a long time, and like not a whole lot really happened to that movie, but it was effective for the time period. But like if you just objectively watch it, like nothing's really going on, you know.
I feel like I think I remember reading something about their budget for Blair Witch versus the profit it made, and it was like this astronomical margin.
Well, Paranormal Activity too, because like they made it for 27,000, I think, and it made like 250 million. The whole franchise is like probably like at $1 billion because of like all the sequels. That's crazy. Like what you could do with like barely any money.
Yeah, shoestring budget, just some creative people and a camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's good, and I think it holds a place of distinction. Blair Witch does, but just for pure like entertainment purposes, like I feel like Paranormal Activity is more rewarding to watch. Like I can't picture myself like watching Blair Witch again anytime soon for fun because I saw it recently, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I would watch Paranormal Activity again. Paranormal Activity seems fun also to watch with new people.
Yeah.
Right? Someone who's never seen it, like, hey, let's watch this horror film. Whereas Blair Witch suffers from everyone knows what's going on, right? Like everyone, whether they've seen it or not, they know. If they watch horror movies at all, they know what Blair Witch is. They know, the biggest, I guess, gripe about Blair Witch is that they never saw the witch. That's what people were like, what the fuck? And I think in the remake of Blair Witch, which I think the same people did the remake, if I'm not mistaken, you actually get to see the witch.
I read that they tried to film the witch or whoever was playing the witch in the Blair Witch, the original, the cameraman or one of the actors just couldn't get the camera in the right position, so like they missed it, and they just said, "Well, oh well, like, we're just not going to have that in there." But they were still reacting to seeing the witch and like screaming.
Yeah,
because at the time they didn't know what the hell that project really was.
Yeah, it's really well done. I when I see these like witch movies, anything with a witch in it, I always think they miss so many opportunities to like make a really cool like witch.
Well, what about The Witch by Robert Eggers? What do you think?
The Witch is great.
Yeah,
I like that movie a lot. Rewatching it again, I hate the fucking filters. I hate when the whole movie looks like it has like a filter overlaid to create the atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
I understand why they do it, and I get it, but when I watch some movies, like it takes me out of it. I'm like, God damn this filter! Like I really fucking hate it because it's like it doesn't allow me to be immersed in the movie because I can see that there's this fucking filter. Everything, the color is off with everything, and it just fucking gets on my nerves. And I get it. It's probably a way cheaper way of filming than waiting for actual nighttime and waiting for.
Yeah, it's just color grading in post, I think. Like, but there's a fine line because like I love colored lighting in movies like Suspiria.
Yep.
But I feel like that's totally different than what you're talking about, where they just throw on a blue filter.
That's what it feels like to me. Like when they do that, I like the use of lighting. I love when they use really stark colors and like in Kwaidan, all the colors they use are really cool.
Yeah.
And I like, some of the 80s style horror movies where everything, like, why is there a blue light just shining from the right side of the screen? We don't know, but it's cool, and I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they just like slap a filter over the entire film, it just feels lazy.
Yeah.
And like I get it, they're trying to make the sky look dark and kind of cloudy, but it's they put the filter over everything. Like the dark colors, the contrast is off. That's also what seems bad. Like it just takes me out of it. But the movie itself was really well done. I just which movies to me are like werewolf movies? Like there's why are they not doing it? You know, they haven't done a good werewolf movie since Wolfman with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
That's probably the best werewolf movie that's ever been made. Right up there with American Werewolf in London and the second Underworld movie, The Rise of the Lycans. Maybe it was the third one. Either way, Rise of the Lycans. Those three movies like did werewolves really well. And as much as I love The Howling, all of the Howling movies, they're fucking awful.
Did you see the new Wolfman movie? I watched it recently and I thought it was decent, but it does not live up to those other ones.
No, I read some review of it. I read this review, and I wish I had saved it. I might try to find it so we can talk about it next time. The review was short; it was like 2 or 3 sentences, and it was just this scathing line that was so like right to the heart. Like it was just heart ripped out, and I thought, man, I can't watch that movie now because I'm never going to be able to get what this guy said out of my head. Like he eviscerated what they did with that movie.
The problem with the movie though is like it's one of those movies that you'll forget in a week. It's like not memorable.
Yeah, I mean that's how I feel about the new Nosferatu movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ. The only thing that is memorable about that movie to me is how fucking shitty it was. Just overhyped, right? And I felt like they did that with, was it called The Wolfman or The Wolfmen? I don't know how they did something to like separate it from.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I saw some of the trailers for it. I saw like they were trying to hype it up, and I just thought, this is gonna be terrible. Like you can see that it's gonna be terrible.
One of the worst ones I think is Cursed. Wes Craven's Cursed with Christina Ricci. Because like I think they changed that like they completely changed the cast multiple times and reshot it, and
yeah,
which sucks because I love Wes Craven.
Yeah, I saw just in the last maybe 2 years, my wife got me to watch Ginger Snaps.
Okay, yeah.
I had seen Ginger Snaps in like the movie rental place or a Blockbuster or Best Buy when I was looking through DVDs. I had seen it, I don't know, 100 times, and it never once occurred to me that it was a werewolf movie. I never picked it up and looked at it. It was like the two girls' faces on there, and I don't know what I thought it was, but I just never occurred to me. And so she was talking about liking Ginger Snaps from high school or whatever, and so we started watching it. And then I was like, wait, is this a fucking werewolf movie? Like, I realized it was werewolves, and I was like, holy shit. And I had no idea. So, and that one wasn't bad. But again, I feel like it's untapped. They could make a good werewolf movie for certain. I feel like Guillermo del Toro needs to make a fucking werewolf movie.
Well, he's doing Frankenstein right now, I think.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
As much as he like loves horror and like genuinely loves horror, and as much as he likes to use practical effects, I feel like, man, we don't need like the Wolfman retold at this point, but I feel like he could do a werewolf movie and probably make it not awful.
Yeah.
The way they make werewolves look in werewolf movies is just so bad most of the time. It's so weird. Even like one of the top 5 greatest werewolf movies of all time, Monster Squad, the werewolf looked really dumb. Like like his movement, right? He skipped. Why is he skipping? And I feel like they gotta, I don't know. Maybe it's studio people. I have no idea why they get stuck with these scenes where like why do the werewolves all move the same? Why do they all do this thing? Why do they all do this like where they're like moving back and forth and they're like they're swimming in the air. They move their arms. Why do they do that? It's like, wouldn't they move like wolves? Wolves don't do that shit.
Yeah.
We watched 30 Days of Night the other night. Right? Great movie.
Yeah.
But why, when the vampire bites their neck, why are they shaking their head?
Oh, yeah.
Blood spraying out. What the fuck is that?
Dramatic effect, I guess.
Yeah, like it looks so stupid though. Like they're not trying to rip the skin because clearly they've already bitten through it. Like, why are they doing that? I don't know. And it's when they have movies like with small creatures or dolls, and like they fly through the air and the person catches them, but somehow like it's like they're fighting with this creature pulling itself towards them, but they're not capable of it, right? Like if you picked up a small yapping dog that was trying to bite you, if you were holding it out, it'd be it, right? But in the movies, they're like, and it's like coming towards them. I fucking hate that. It's so stupid. And it's like they get stuck doing these things, like the way the werewolves walk, like with their hands, you know, like yeah, exactly. Fucking Larry Talbot. Yeah, but like the way they move, like it's so cheesy.
Yeah, I agree.
And they do that with werewolves. And vampires, they've gotten away from that, right? Not every vampire moves like Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
With his, you know, his Roy hands. Roy does that so fucking perfect. It's funny. Because he hates when I call him a vampire. But they got away from that. But werewolf movies still haven't. Werewolves do this weird, like, it's like a skipping thing when they run. Like, why are they skipping? Why are they like doing their arms all fucking weird? Underworld did a really good job, right? Like they were bipedal, but then when they started running, they would go into all fours. Like they didn't do that, all the weird cliche shit. And then the faces, like you can't tell me there's not some guy out there who could sculpt or use like, you know, through like ZBrush or physically sculpt a face that looked like a mixture of like a human skull and a wolf skull.
Well, I think the one everyone acknowledges as the best was Rick Baker. He did American Werewolf in London, and then I know he was supposed to do Cursed, but I think he got like kicked off that project or something happened, and then that's why like it looks so terrible now. But I don't know if he's still alive or still doing effects, but
yeah,
he was really
I follow, I think, a Rick Baker page on Instagram, so maybe. But like even like the long tufts of hair on the end of the ears, sometimes wolf's ears don't look like that. Like it's silly to me how they can't, I don't know, get that right or do better. It blows my mind that they can't do a better job. The teeth, even, like, why are we trying to, you know, reinvent the wheel here? Look at a wolf's mouth. Their teeth are terrifying. Just copy that.
Yeah.
And then put it into a human kind of skull and face. And I don't know, like they fuck things up a lot and make it too cheesy. But I feel like that genre for sure, werewolves, untapped. Like we could use. They made like, was that fucking the Aquaman guy? He made a werewolf movie a few years ago, and we started watching it. And I turned it off. It was so fucking bad.
Oh yeah,
it's just garbage. Like most of the movies he makes are garbage, but like that movie as a werewolf movie was garbage, and then it's frustrating to me that no one can fucking figure out how to make a werewolf not look like a douchebag.